The sound of the rain tapping against the hotel window still echoes in my memory. That night, everything felt wrong, the air, the silence, the way my heart trembled inside my chest. I stood there, half-dressed, under the faint glow of the office light. My blouse lay crumpled on the chair beside me, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Mr. Collins sat at his desk, watching me with the calm authority of a man who knew he had full control. And beside him sat a stranger, a tall man with piercing eyes and an expression I could not read. His name, I would later learn, was Ethan Blake. But that night, I only saw the danger in his silence. I remember whispering to myself, how did I end up here? It was not the voice of the woman I used to be. It was the voice of someone who had lost everything in a moment that blurred the lines between fear, shame, and confusion. Before I take you into that night, I want to pause and say a huge thank you to all my new and returning viewers. You are the reason I keep telling these stories, stories that remind us how easily trust can break and how deeply our choices can wound us. If you are watching this and you have not yet subscribed, please, I would be so grateful if you hit that subscribe button right now. It is the fuel that keeps this channel alive. And please share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. I truly want to hear what you think as we journey through this painful story together. My name is Emily Dawson, and I used to believe that loyalty and love were enough to keep a marriage alive. I was 32, living in Dallas, Texas, with my husband, Mark. We had been married for 7 years, but somewhere between his long construction shifts and my demanding hours at the hotel, we stopped looking at each other like lovers. We became strangers who shared a bed but not a life. That morning had been like every other, quiet, heavy, and routine. I made him breakfast, but he barely looked up from his phone. He said he had an early site meeting and left without saying goodbye. I watched the door close, feeling that familiar emptiness in my chest. It had become normal, the silence, the distance, the aching loneliness that followed me everywhere. When I arrived at the Golden Leaf Hotel, the manager's assistant pulled me aside. "Lisa called in sick again," she said. "Can you take the night shift?" I hesitated. I had already done a double shift the day before. But I needed the money, and more than that, I needed to feel useful, needed to stay busy enough to forget how broken I felt at home. So I agreed. By evening, the hotel had quieted down. The guests had retired to their rooms, and the lobby glowed with the warm amber of the night lights. My boss, Mr. Raymond Collins, called me into his office. He was in his mid-40s, handsome in a way that demanded attention, polished shoes, perfect hair, and the kind of smile that made people obey before they realized they were doing it. He told me how much he appreciated my commitment, how rare it was to find someone so dedicated. His compliments sounded innocent at first, but his tone carried something else, something that made my stomach twist. "Emily," he said softly, "you work too hard for too little appreciation. You deserve better." I smiled politely and thanked him, but I kept my distance. I had heard stories about him, about the way he blurred lines with his female staff. I told myself I could handle it, that professionalism would protect me. But that was before Ethan Blake walked in. It was around 11:47 p.m. when the front door opened, and he stepped inside. The rain followed him like a ghost. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat that glistened with droplets. His presence filled the lobby with something unexplainable, quiet power, confidence, mystery. He asked for a late reservation, and while I checked him in, I noticed the way Mr. Collins appeared behind me, almost too quickly. "Ethan, my friend." "Mr. Collins," exclaimed, clapping him on the back as if they knew each other well. "Come up to my office for a drink." Ethan smiled faintly, then looked at me. "If it is not too much trouble, perhaps she can bring it up." That was the first time his voice reached me. Calm. Deep. Controlled. I nodded, trying not to let the tension show. When I entered the office again with the tray of drinks, both men were already seated. The blinds were half closed, the air heavy with the smell of whiskey and cologne. Mr. Collins told me to stay, said he needed me to take notes for a few documents he was reviewing. But there were no documents on the table. Only silence. Then, as if time slowed, Mr. Collins leaned back in his chair and said something that made my heart stop. "Emily," he said, "you trust me, do you not?" I froze. "Yes, sir," I replied, unsure what he was leading to. He smiled faintly. "Then do something for me." His tone changed, low, sharp, commanding. "Take off your blouse." At first, I thought I had misheard him. But the way he stared told me otherwise. Ethan did not move. He just watched, his expression unreadable. My throat tightened. I felt my legs weaken beneath me. I told him no, but my voice trembled like a child's whisper. He stood up, walked around the desk, and stopped close enough for me to smell the alcohol on his breath. "Emily," he said again, quieter this time, "I could make your career. You have dreams, do you not? Promotions, bonuses, respect. You deserve them. But you must trust me." Every word hit me like a slap. I felt trapped, powerless. I could not scream, could not move. The rain outside grew louder, as if the storm was mocking me. I remember looking at Ethan. His eyes met mine for the first time, and in that split second, I saw something that looked like pity, or maybe regret. But he did not speak. He just turned his face away. And so, trembling, I obeyed. The moment felt endless, cold, humiliating, and suffocating. I remember the sound of my heart pounding louder than the rain. I remember praying silently, asking God to stop time, to make me disappear. When it was over, Mr. Collins smiled, thanked me, and dismissed me as if nothing had happened. Ethan said nothing. He only stared at the glass of whiskey in front of him, lost in thought. I walked out of that room with tears burning in my eyes, my dignity scattered like broken glass. That night, I drove home in silence. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I could not tell my husband. I could not tell anyone. The weight of shame and betrayal pressed down so hard that I could barely breathe. But as I closed my bedroom door and looked at myself in the mirror, I knew something inside me had changed forever. I was no longer the same Emily Dawson who walked into that hotel. I had crossed a line I never meant to cross, dragged into darkness by trust, silence, and fear. And that night was only the beginning. Morning light has a cruel way of exposing what the night tried to hide. When I woke up that day, my body still felt heavy from the shame I had carried home. I could not look at my reflection in the mirror without feeling my stomach twist. The makeup I had forgotten to wash off had smeared across my face like evidence of sin. My blouse, the one I had worn that night, still lay draped over the chair, reminding me of everything I wanted to forget. Mark was already gone. His coffee mug sat cold on the counter. He had left a note that said, "Site meeting in Fort Worth. Back late." No heart, no warmth, no sign that he even noticed the quiet sadness that followed me everywhere. I sat there at the kitchen table, staring at that note, and for the first time in years, I felt completely invisible. The man I once thought was my safe place had become a ghost that slept beside me. I told myself that if I could just get through that day, I would find a way to forget. But forgetting is not something the soul allows easily. Especially when the wound is fresh and the scar has not even begun to form. When I arrived at the Golden Leaf Hotel, everything felt different. The place that once gave me a sense of pride now felt tainted. Every hallway, every smell, every familiar sound carried a memory I wanted to erase. I avoided Mr. Collins's office. The thought of seeing him again made my chest tighten. But life, cruel as it is, does not always give us the mercy of avoidance. Around noon, I received a message from him through the company email. "Emily, thank you for your dedication last night. I trust our little understanding will stay between us. I have high hopes for your career." I read the message 3 times before deleting it. My hands trembled, my eyes blurred. Understanding. That was what he called it. He made it sound mutual, as if I had chosen that humiliation. I locked myself in the restroom and cried quietly, afraid someone might hear. I had never felt so powerless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face and heard his voice. When I stepped out, trying to gather myself, the receptionist at the front desk told me that a man had left a note for me. My heart raced as I unfolded it. The handwriting was bold, neat, unfamiliar. I know what happened last night. You do not deserve to carry the blame. Meet me at the cafe across the street after your shift. EB. For a moment, I just stared at the initials. EB. Ethan Blake. The air around me grew colder. My first instinct was fear. What did he mean he knew? Was he planning to blackmail me? Or worse, expose me? But another part of me, some desperate, broken part, wanted to know why he wrote it. The clock ticked slower than usual that day. By the time my shift ended, my nerves were frayed. I crossed the street to the small cafe, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. He was already there. Sitting by the window, dressed casually this time, his dark hair slightly tousled, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. When he saw me, he stood and nodded politely. I sat down across from him, avoiding his eyes. He spoke first. You do not have to be afraid. I am not here to hurt you. I remained silent, unsure of what to believe. Then he leaned forward, his voice low, steady. What your boss did last night was wrong. I was there because I needed proof of who he really is. You were not supposed to be part of it. His words confused me. Proof? I asked quietly. He nodded. I have been working with private investigators. Your boss has been under suspicion for exploiting staff members. I was asked to confirm it. My throat tightened. You knew what he was going to do? He hesitated. I suspected, not that far. I thought he would make inappropriate advances. I did not think he would cross that line. When it happened, I froze. I stared at him, searching for sincerity. His eyes, those unreadable eyes, seemed to carry guilt of their own. I wanted to stop him, he continued, but if I did, the investigation would end before we had proof. What I saw broke something in me. I did not sleep last night. The world felt like it was spinning. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to ask why he did not stop it. But another part understood that I was not just a victim, I was now tangled in something much bigger. He looked at me and said softly, "You are not alone in this. I will help you if you let me." That was how it began. For the next few days, Ethan and I exchanged messages. At first, they were about the case, questions, details, updates. But soon, they became more personal. He asked how I was sleeping. He told me I did not deserve to be treated like that. He reminded me that what happened was not my fault. And I believed him. It was dangerous, how comforting his words felt. He saw me, the real me. Not the woman who smiled at guests or the wife who waited at home for affection that never came. He saw the pain, the fear, the loneliness I had buried for years. One evening, after work, he sent another message. Sometimes the hardest forgiveness is the one we owe ourselves. That message stayed with me all night. I read it again and again until I fell asleep. A week later, he asked to meet in person again. Against my better judgment, I said yes. We met at a quiet park just outside the city. The air was crisp, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We sat on a bench, talking about everything but the hotel. His voice had a way of soothing me, and for the first time in weeks, I laughed. But laughter has a dangerous way of softening walls. When he looked at me, really looked, I felt my guard crumble. His hand brushed mine for only a second, but it felt like a spark. I should have pulled away. I should have stood up and left. But instead, I stayed. He told me he admired my strength, that I was brave for enduring what I had gone through. I told him I did not feel brave. I felt broken. He said, broken things still shine in the light. His words made my chest ache. That night, when I returned home, Mark was there, asleep on the couch with the television still on. I watched him for a long time, wondering if he would ever look at me again with love. Wondering if he ever saw me at all. The next morning, I found myself checking my phone before even brushing my teeth, waiting for Ethan's message. And when it came, it began with 3 words that changed everything. I need you. That was the beginning of a new kind of fall, the kind that does not come from force, but from longing. I told myself I was simply finding comfort, friendship, healing. But deep down, I knew that something in me was already crossing another line. And the worst part? I did not stop it. Because Ethan Blake's smile was not only kind. It was dangerous. It is strange how quickly secrets begin to rot once light finds them. For weeks, Ethan became my escape. Every message, every call, every meeting felt like oxygen after drowning. I told myself I deserved comfort after the nightmare I had endured. I convinced myself it was healing. But deep down, I knew I was standing on borrowed peace built on deception. One quiet afternoon, as I walked into the hotel, everything changed. Mr. Collins's office door was open, and the air felt thick with tension. People whispered near the elevators. A news crew van was parked outside the lobby. My pulse quickened as I hurried toward my desk. Within minutes, a coworker pulled me aside, her face pale. Emily, she whispered, someone leaked a video of Mr. Collins. There's an investigation. The footage, it's from a hidden camera. The world stopped. I felt my knees weaken. A video. Hidden camera. I did not need to ask which night. I ran to the restroom, locked the door, and pressed my back against it, gasping for air. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I took out my phone, opened my messages, and typed one name, Ethan. Before I could send anything, a new message appeared from him first. Emily, please do not panic. I never meant for this to go public. The investigation team released it without my consent. I am trying to contain it. My hands trembled as I read those words. Without my consent. It did not matter. The damage was already done. That night, the video spread across every platform. The headline read, Hotel Manager Exposed in Disturbing Office Footage. And even though my name was not mentioned, anyone who worked there knew. Anyone who saw me recognized my face, even in the shadows of that room. I wanted to scream, to disappear, to erase every second of that night. Instead, I sat in my car, shaking, whispering prayers that felt too weak to reach heaven. When I arrived home, Mark was waiting. The look on his face said everything before his words did. He had seen it. Emily, he said quietly, is it true? I wanted to tell him it was not. I wanted to beg him to believe me. But the words got lost somewhere between guilt and grief. I nodded through tears. He turned away from me, silent. That silence hurt more than any slap could have. It was final, cold, empty. He packed a small bag and left that night. The sound of the door closing was the sound of my world collapsing. Days passed, and I sank into darkness. I stopped going to work. I stopped answering calls. The whispers, the stares, the pity, I could not face any of it. My reputation was gone. My marriage was gone. My dignity had been stripped bare for the world to see. Then, one evening, Ethan showed up at my door. He looked different, tired, broken, ashamed. Emily, he said, I am sorry. I wanted justice, not this. I wanted to protect you. I looked at him through swollen eyes. You used me, I said quietly. He shook his head. No, do not lie to me again. My voice cracked, but it came from a place of truth. You wanted proof. And now you have it. You wanted justice, but you destroyed me in the process. He stood there for a long time, tears forming in his eyes, but I closed the door. I could not bear to see him again. That night, I fell to my knees in my living room and cried until I could not breathe. I begged God for forgiveness, for strength, for peace. I had lost everything, my marriage, my job, my name. But in that silence, something inside me whispered that maybe what I needed to lose was not just what hurt me, but also what hid me. Weeks turned into months. The world moved on, as it always does. The story faded from the headlines, and the whispers turned into silence. But I was not the same woman anymore. I began to rebuild, not with pride, but with truth. I found a small church outside the city. The pastor did not know my story, and for the first time in a long while, I sat in the back pew, listening to the sound of grace. That was where healing began, not instantly, not completely, but slowly, like dawn breaking after a storm. Now, when I tell this story, it is not to seek pity or revenge. It is to remind every woman watching this that silence is not protection, and misplaced trust can destroy more than you think. Mr. Collins lost his position and his freedom. Ethan disappeared after the investigation. Mark never came back. But I found something they all took for granted, myself. And to you watching right now. You may be standing at the edge of a decision, believing silence will save you, or that comfort will heal what pain has broken. But ask yourself this. When your heart stands between what feels right and what is right, what will you choose? Will you speak, or will you stay silent until the silence swallows you? Because one night, one choice, can change everything. If this story touched something deep inside you, please take a moment to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell me what lesson you took away from Emily's journey. Your words matter, they may be the reason someone else finds the courage to speak out before it is too late. Thank you for watching.